Okay, so I'm just going to do an overview of my feelings and thoughts on Dr. Gooden's lecture on Plato's Cave. I thought she did a really good job discussing the whole overview of the cave. She did it more in a simplistic way so then you could understand it. And then when I went back to the piece and read it, I knew what was going on. And if I hadn't really read the piece, or if I hadn't heard her talk about it before I read it, I probably would have been a little bit confused just because it's in a weird structure. But once she talked about it, I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. Like, they're trying to reach light, they're in a cave. And it's just a bunch of questions almost asked, like Plato's asking questions throughout the piece, which was just weird for me. Anyways, I think Dr. Gooden was very aggressive, as we all talked about, just because she had a very firm belief about the truth and she stuck to that belief. And I kind of questioned how she thought about things, but also I wanted to question my beliefs. So I was considering her viewpoints as well. So what surprised me really in the lecture was the idea that there's only one true truth, but no one really knows what it is. We're all looking for it. We knew it before we were born, and then we were born and forgot about it, and now we're all looking for it. And supposedly studying philosophy will reach us to that truth. But what if that isn't true? What if Plato was completely wrong and everyone's truths are different in the end? That was one of the questions I posed, was what if we don't exactly know if we're looking for it correctly? And what if everybody's truth is a little bit different than each other's? Since we're all so different in a ton of ways, that there's no way we could all have the same standard of beauty, or we're never gonna all agree on what's beautiful. So how could there only be one beauty? I just thought that was confusing to me. Also, relating back to Susan Sontag's piece, she made the argument that photos actually distance us from reality, which kind of made me think about Dr. Gooden's lecture and how the idea that we are seeing, that it's almost like we're seeing the shadows in the cave when we take a photo of something. And me personally, I take a ton of photos. So I thought about it a little bit more, and I guess I am really distancing myself from reality when I take a photo, because I'm not living in that moment. I'm so intrigued, or I'm so engulfed in the idea that I have to capture it to show people that it happened, or remember that it happened, that I'm not actually living in that moment, in which I can see how that relates to the cave, because those are what the people didn't actually know what life was like or what the truth was like until that one prisoner escaped. But our world is becoming so evolved that we're so used to having a camera in front of our face, taking photos of everything and posting it on social media, that it's almost like we are the prisoners that are fighting off the people telling us to live in the moment and telling us to just experience it without having to have a camera. So I just thought that was kind of surprising too. I also thought it was surprising that photos could be considered part of the sensible particulars, considering that they are merely appearances of reality, but they're not really reality. And also, photos can't capture, I quoted her, photos can't necessarily capture feelings and the thoughts or complex thoughts that are meant to happen, that were actually happening in that photo, and they can't actually do that. So I thought that was interesting too. One thing that I want to quote from Susan Sontag, she said, ultimately having an experience becomes identical with taking a photograph of it, and participating in a public event becomes more and more equivalent to looking at it in a photographed form. Which I was thinking maybe she could be indicating that the more photography evolves, the more it becomes normalized. Could we be digging deeper into the cave? We're really never going to be able to get out based off of Susan Gooden's lecture unless we do reason and look for reality. And that isn't going to come from taking so much of a photograph. and pretending that we have been a part of that event when we really haven't. It's kind of confusing to me, but some of the connections I made were when we're taking a photograph of something, we take it because we show interest in it, right? We're not going to take a photograph of something we don't like. And this doesn't mean that we're necessarily using reason or intellect. So if we deem something beautiful, we're going to take a photograph of it. And that thing is essentially participating in beauty. But Plato says that there's a one set thing of a one set standard of beauty. Yet we find so many different things beautiful. Everybody's standards of beauty are different. Kind of like how we talked about, I personally talked about Arbus the other day in one of our discussions, and how that photographer took pictures of freaks, but she almost made it so that the freaks were beautiful and so intense that they could be deemed as beautiful, which people, these are people that are usually thought of as repulsive. So how did Plato know that there was one standard of beauty and that there's one thing, there's only one way to participate in beauty? I don't know. And then I also made a connection that we'll never be able to capture the realm of forms on camera because the realm of forms is intellect. But then yet Dr. Gooden states that form is true nature and essence, perfect, eternal, and intelligible. Yeah, a photo could be considered all of those because a photo can be considered internal and it can be considered perfect and intelligible. I don't know. It's just something I thought about. And then the themes that I thought about throughout these two pieces, the lecture and the piece, were that viewers rely on an image to confirm a moment, just kind of like how the prisoners relied on the shadows to confirm what things were. And also that we're currently in the cave. I mean, that was pretty obvious throughout both of these pieces. People are in the cave by taking photographs, and people are in the cave by not seeking the truth, which is by studying philosophy. So, questions that I really formed throughout these, obviously how everybody's standards of beauty are different and everybody deems things beauty differently. So how do we necessarily know the true standard of beauty from Plato's version? That was one thing that I could not get past. And also just everything around, I don't understand, emotions, where emotions fall into this in religion. That was really one of the good things that our class talked about and made me think about, because, sadness is emotion, but where does that fall in the realm of forms or in the sensible particulars? And then, is there another way to seek truth without studying philosophy? I mean, I'm probably not going to study philosophy, but I do want to seek truth. So and that also brings me back to the idea of what if everybody's truths are different? And what if there's different ways to find the truth in the end? And I guess we're never going to know until we die. So, I just think it's the whole idea of both of these pieces were so well put together, and Dr. Gooden was amazing to watch, even though she was very aggressive. But also, Susan Sontag made so many good points that I just can't get to within the time limit, obviously, that I would love to get to, because she really made me think about photography different, and also just the way that it can be used. So yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.